NASA and the Russian Space Agency are unable to agree on exactly what's causing a leak on board the International Space Station right now. The leak was first discovered in 2019 on a part of the station operated by Russia. NASA is worried that it's a sign the structural integrity of the ISS could fail. Russia doesn't think that's as serious. The two agencies will continue discussing the issue. Meanwhile, the growing relationship between President-elect Donald Trump and SpaceX owner and head of the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, is raising some questions on how he and the second Trump administration will approach space policy. So joining me now is astronaut Dr. Charlie Camarda. Dr. Camarda, it's great to have you with us, talking about a variety of topics here. I want to start first with this leak on the ISS. For folks who are just trying to get an understanding of what's going on here, how dangerous is this, and should they be worried about American astronauts on board?
Absolutely. It's probably the most dangerous aspect of space station right now, and the astronauts on board the space station. It's definitely in the front of the back of their mind, and it's critical. Cracks could basically propagate rapidly. You could have a rapid decompression, and then the astronauts would have to basically get into their spaceships, get into the Soyuz, get into the Dragon capsule, and come home.
And I do want to ask you about some of the astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. Remember, they went up on the Boeing Starliner back in June. There was a malfunction. They've been stuck up there. We know that NASA is now working to try to bring them back. What can we expect from that process in the weeks ahead?
Unfortunately, they had to make it an extended stay. They were up there 8 months instead of 8 days. But the Dragon capsule is up there. They will be coming back in approximately 6 weeks. Have a lot of faith in the Dragon capsule. It'll be a safe ride home.
We were talking about this earlier with Elon Musk, obviously having a very close relationship with President-elect Donald Trump and the Government Efficiency Department. He's also, of course, the founder and CEO of SpaceX. How much do you think he's going to have an influence on all space policy going forward? Obviously, he had some before, but now, is this a game changer?
I hope he has a very large influence on where NASA is going right now. NASA needs to be transformed. He's the right person to do it. He does things differently. I would call it rapid concept development. NASA uses a very old research development, product development strategy, and NASA needs to change. I'm not as familiar with the workings of SpaceX, so I don't know if he's developing a real research culture in the organization. They seem to be doing things right. They're failing. They're learning rapidly, so it's an intelligent fast failure. I think they could do better. I think they could learn a lot more in the laboratory instead of these large failures. But he seems to be doing things right. The problem is he creating the right culture in his organization? Is there too much burnout? Are people being mentored so that they learn the craft of research and applied research?
We were talking about this a little bit in the commercial break. Musk walks around with the Occupy Mars T-shirt. That's his big long-term goal. Do you think if they remove some of the regulations, some of the red tape, that SpaceX, NASA could potentially get to Mars earlier than previously thought?
I think if we're going to get there early, I think Musk is on the right track to do that. And that really is his vision. I think this going to the moon, colonizing moon, to me, it's kind of a distraction. I believe it's probably a distraction for Elon, but he's doing it because NASA wants to do it. I think there are things we could learn from the moon, but I don't think the way they're approaching the architecture for going to the moon is the right way. I think there's a better way of doing it to maximize the same techniques we would use for going to Mars. And so do it robotically, making sure we are able to mine ice, water on the surface of the moon. We could create consumables, oxygen, water, rocket fuel, so that it's waiting there for the vehicle when it arrives, instead of what Elon is doing right now. Because NASA has this particular architecture, they're going to launch about 15 to 20 flights just to refuel one Starship to go to the moon. If you remember, during the Apollo days, we did this in one shot with a Saturn rocket.
So that's definitely something to watch closely. But I want to get to your book here, Mission Out of Control, because you flew on NASA's return to flight mission. This was after the devastating loss of the space shuttle Columbia, which, as we know, killed all 7 astronauts on board. With this book here, you are critical of NASA and U.S. efforts in space. So what do you hope we can take away from this, learn from that disaster going forward?
Organizations, great organizations, even NASA loses its way. We're watching it happen play out with Boeing, 737 MAX, Starliner. It's a cultural thing. NASA lost its way after the Challenger accident, was not able to correct the problems. And the same exact problems, the same cultural problems are what caused Columbia. Unfortunately, right after Columbia and after we flew the return to flight mission right after Columbia, they did not fix the culture. So the first half of the book talks about a little bit of the ugliness of how corrupt, how dysfunctional even a great organization can be. But the second half of the book are firsthand stories of what we could do to change things, to make them better. And I give examples of how we created technology for return to flight. We did it quickly because we used a research-type culture and developed high-performing teams in order to fail fast and furiously and solve these problems, kind of like how Elon Musk is doing things now.
Dr. Camarda, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. A wide range of topics here. Mission Out of Control. Once again, the book out now. Thank you again.